Hey everybody, welcome on Facebook, welcome on YouTube. So I've titled this Commit. Commit to who? Well, to you. So I have a question for you before we start. Do you sometimes view your life as fragmented, seeing the pieces, unable to integrate them into the wholeness of who you are? I think many of us buy the narrative of the Matrix, and what happens is that we fit the mold. Religion puts us in a mold, government puts us in a mold, education puts us in a mold, and it's time to break out of the box. This is not cliche. It's time to put all those fragments together to see the beauty of your life in a new birth. And I'm going to tell you about a journey I've had over the past month that did just that, in the process of realizing this new part of me that wants to come out, and healing occurs. So I've titled this Commit to Being You. This is a journey where you forego what others think, not trying to prove anything to anyone, but also not being defensive. We read about that all the time, but doing it takes courage, because you are confronted with so many things that don't want you to be you. They want you to be everything else that fits a mold, and it's time to take the courage to be who you are. This is not cliche. This is what I've experienced over the past 4 years, and I'm going to tell you about my journey, so I hope you stay tuned. So I read how I move intuitively is I generally see images or I hear one-liners. And in those one-liners, they present themselves intuitively to me, and then I have a choice. I can either see what the image is trying to tell me, it presents itself as an open door, or what the one-liner is trying to tell me, and then I focus on it, and then I move along a path to healing and to wholeness. But I don't ignore what intuition brings my way, because sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes it takes courage to accept it. So I heard several things over the past 4 years, because this is how I move intuitively. You may choose a different way. You may get dreams. You may get visions. But I'm going to share my journey with you because it told me to commit to being me. Now, if I had not responded to the intuition a couple years ago, if I had not responded, it would have kept presenting itself to me in different ways, in different shapes, in different forms. But I had to take the courage to say yes. And one of the first things I learned was, I'm going to take you step by step. So this feeling kept coming to my mind, and it was a simple statement. I don't know who made it, but it was, don't make someone a priority that considers you an option. Now, that's a very profound statement, and it's very true, because how much of myself, how much of yourself do you give away hoping that trying to please someone, trying to fill an emptiness in your being, trying to be what that someone else likes, to be accepted? Because rejection hurts, loneliness hurts, but sometimes you have to walk through the reality of that healing to come out into being a totally new person. So I had to realize that I was making certain people, places, and things priorities that were only considering me options, and I kept trying to draw their attention. So that set me on a path of trying to see what it is in the depths of my being that I really want and who I really am. Now again, that sounds so cliche. Every meme is out there, but when you walk it, you're going to face times alone that you're going to have to look at yourself, and you're going to have the courage to know that you don't fit the mold, or you don't want to fit the mold. So my life's journey into wholeness was built on, and is built on, intuition, synchronicity, which flows from and within my divine humanity. And this is how I navigate space and time. So what do I mean by that? In my journey, I often hear simple statements that open doors to understanding. I encounter synchronicities that confirm I'm on the right path. I have books that I read that suddenly what I've been thinking about for days, suddenly I read a statement that answers a question. Well, who put that in my path? It was generally God, the universe, the divine mind. So then I also see videos that I have no idea they're out there. They will present themselves to me, and I'll thought, this is the universe hand tailoring my existence to me. Then I meet people. There's so many synchronicities that come subtly. Intuition is simplicity. It doesn't pound on the door. It doesn't yell. It doesn't shout. It may repeat itself to draw and capture your attention, but it generally comes as a subtle nuance. What does that mean? It means that it's there, but it takes you responding to it. It is essential that we respond to the synchronicities and the intuition that present themselves. So then I also heard, Deborah, seek and you will find. Well, what will I find? I'll find me. So let's start on this journey. Let's take you back about a year to how I arrived going on a trip to Southern Illinois to visit my son, and how I had to go back to a place where I lost myself to find myself. Now, I was born and raised in Chicago, so Illinois was very essential to me. Being raised in the Midwest was very important to me. So in what led up to that, taking that trip, buying that ticket, and then suddenly realize that, wow, something changed in me. Well, let me take you on this journey. Several years ago, I kept intuitively hearing these words, integrate and amalgamate. Now, I kind of knew what integration was, but I had no idea what amalgamation was. And when I looked it up, it had a business connotation that said when two entities, two businesses amalgamate, they leave behind who they were to create a whole new enterprise. And I thought, this is a new birth. Well, then I looked at integrate. Well, what does integrate mean? It means to bring together into a wholeness, into a oneness, to produce a new birth, to show Deborah who Deborah is. Now, I thought that was very simplistic, but I didn't realize at the time that the journey was going to take me through times of loneliness, times of crying, times of regret, times of forgiving myself, times of great joy, and that it all starts to pull together. And you see all these pieces that the matrix tries to tell you that you're defined by. You're this. You need a PhD to do this, or you need to follow this path to define yourself. You need to have so many people listen to your YouTube videos, or you need to write 6 books. Now, in and of themselves, those things are not bad, but they aren't necessary in order to find yourself, because to integrate all the experiences in your life is uniquely and individually new. And I knew for a fact that when this procedure started, I knew that the very thing I was going to find about myself was I had a lot of fear in being me. Do you know that, this is a funny story, do you know that I graduated high school after 3 years because I had all the credits, and I like school. And I was in this senior class when I was a junior, and there was this spelling bee. She was being funny, the teacher, and we all got up and we were spelling these words until it got down to me and this person who was a senior. I was a junior. And you know what I did? I lost on purpose because I didn't want the attention drawn to me. I had to, when that memory came back to me, it integrated into my wholeness journey, and I had to figure out why? What caused this in me? And I realized that everything in my life stopped me from being creative. I was looking around, I was looking with my peripheral vision, trying to stay on track so that I got the affirmations from people. And you know what? I don't need them, and I don't want them, because I just want to continue on this journey of integration. So those words kept coming before me and showed me all the parts of my life. My grief over losing people in my life, my sister, my husband, the losses I experienced, the regrets, the failures. We all have failures, the loneliness, and all those fragments were sitting in a field. And sometimes I was afraid to look at them, because I thought there's no way I can integrate them. How do I get rid of this fear? How do I get rid of this loneliness? And suddenly I started pulling them together, and I did that consciously. I started meditating and thinking about, why am I like this? I started asking friends, what do you think about this? I started getting their opinion. I started sharing it with close people. So slowly but surely, everything started to integrate. And grief turned into joy. It turned into love. Sadness turned into acceptance. Rejection turned into committing to who I am. And suddenly all those parts that were in the field suddenly began to amalgamate into a new birth. So it was like I was standing on the shoreline, near a boat, and I thought to myself, if I get in this boat, I'm really going to have to be me, and what if people don't like it? What if I have to always deconstruct from Christianity? Always tell people like they leave Christianity, because you can get hundreds of likes if you stand on the shore and constantly say why you left Christianity. Well, some are called to do that. That's not me. So I realized I had to get into the boat, and I had to just sail out, and I had to trust my intuition to take me where I didn't even know I was going, but I knew that it was going to be a committing to me, the creative part, the brilliant part, the part that doesn't fit the norm. Do any of you not fit the standard norm? I remember listening to a message by Elizabeth Gilbert years ago. Do you know who she is? She wrote some incredible books. And she was saying some of us are like hummingbirds. We go from flower to flower to flower. Others dive deep in. So I realized it was okay to be creative. It was okay not to always follow a set path. So then what happened is I reached a point after several years, and I heard deeply within the essence of my being, go back to where you lost yourself to find yourself. And I did a reel on this. And I thought, why? I mean, where? Well, my son just moved from California to Southern Illinois. And I was born and raised in Chicago. I went 1 year to Carbondale, to Southern Illinois University, until I transferred north. So I knew that I was to go see him and visit him and my daughter-in-law. But I knew that there was also, in the midst of enjoying that time, I knew that there was going to be things revealed to me. I had to go back and find myself where I lost myself, and I had to come full circle. Now, what if I didn't respond to that? What if I just said, oh, this seems kind of funky, it doesn't make much sense? And what if I was there and just totally negated it and never knew that there was also a reason why I was there? Well, when intuition says to do something, there's always a purpose. And I knew that by doing that, some of the cracks in my foundation that were unable to be healed until I stepped foot in the location of where I was to be healed. Why? Why did I have to do that? Well, are you with me? Because about 2015, I was sitting in a conference, and I'm showing you how all this integration flows into a new birth. So that memory came back of sitting in this conference, and we went into a deep time of meditation, and I heard distinctly that I was a travel scribe. Now, I've traveled all over the world, and I've lived in many places, and I knew that being a travel scribe meant that I went to locations to receive something. That's just my call. That's just what I do. Can I receive it here? Yeah, but I'm not supposed to. So I knew that going on this trip and then renting a car in Nashville and driving 3 hours up to Carbondale, I knew that it was going to be a time of recollection, of seeing things, and of great joy. So I said yes, and I went. So I also know that the travel scribe was in the essence of my being. Well, what else does that encompass? It means showing people that they are divinely human on this planet right now, that you can call it whatever you want. Connecting with your higher self. You are one with your higher self. You are in a lower energy on this planet, but you connect intuitively with the divine mind of you are in the divine mind. You are manifesting in this realm, but you should take your cues from your divinity in your humanity through intuition. So I knew that I had to respond, and I had to go back to where I lost myself to find myself. So what are you hearing? Is anyone that listens to this afraid to actually look at their life in full view, look at their life and see everything about their life that may not be beneficial, but it will come full circle to who you are? So I just followed my intuition and I went. I didn't analyze it, or I didn't try to find a reason. I simply opted into the simplicity and obeyed what I heard inside, and I went, not knowing what I was going to experience. This is a journey where you commit to yourself, not having to explain yourself, not having to have people understand it, not having to fit a box. It's a unique individual journey that brings great joy. So intuition, when I heard that, do you know it? Intuition is grounded in simplicity. It's not complexity. It's often subtle and not outwardly apparent. So when I was buying the ticket, and I was thinking about going, I read this book that I had on Kindle by Elizabeth Gilbert, and it was called Creativity. And the first thing I turned to, this is how the universe confirms and takes great joy and like even smiles with you when you're sometimes stepping back. And the quote was, "Do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you?" And I knew that to fully flow in the manifestation of my divinity and my humanity, which is to help people see their brilliance. I can't help you see your brilliance if I don't see it in myself. And I've taken too long to not being creative or to try to be understood. That is all gone. My life in the depth of my essence is curiosity. And curiosity flows through many different realms. And people have often said to me, "I don't understand you," or "How do you switch topics so fast?" And so I tried to hunker down and anchor down into being understood, making sure people understood, until I realized that's really not me. I present what I have, and those that are meant to hear will hear, and it will change their life. So being curious is not accepted in the matrix. And yes, we do live in a matrix. I'll talk about that in the days ahead. We do live in a simulation, but I see it as positive. And this divine spark that is in us breaks out of conformity, out of compliance to a set of narratives, and it anchors you into the essence of your being. What is that? That's your I am. That's also not cliche. There is something in you that is flowing in the essence of who you are that is unique more than anyone else. Mine, among many things, is adventure and curiosity. And yet I was telling myself, what if? Anchor down. Don't do that. Just anchor down. Be safe. So we know that, yet what I observe in people, I started to see that many are still clinging to the shore. And you know what? That's okay. It's your timing. But if you keep clinging to a belief system, and I no longer cling to one belief system, it seems ludicrous to me that all my life I invested my life in one book. That's insanity. You think God would invest God within one book that's been rewritten hundreds of times? Absolutely not. The world is wide open. This planet is wide open to experience an awareness in consciousness as intuition leads you in very different paths. So why not leave it all? I said to myself, why not leave it all? And that's what I'm doing. So every week I'm going to rely on my intuition, and I'm going to teach some things and go along a path, because I'm going to stir within people courage to step out of the box, out of the matrix, stop buying into the fear narrative, and follow your intuition. So I simply listened, got on that plane, rented that car in Nashville, and drove 3 hours through Clarksville, through Paducah, and into Carbondale. And I can't adequately put into words what I experienced, because sometimes, where we live, we don't even notice what's around us. We don't take notice. We take things for granted and we just ignore them. But I hadn't been in the Midwest for so long. And let me tell you something. In California, as a Midwesterner, I don't buy into the insanity. So bravo to all the Midwesterners who have common sense and don't buy into the bullshit insanity that's out there. That is one of the joys of being raised in the Midwest, whether it's Illinois, Kansas, Nebraska, Ohio. There is a beauty in people that are raised there. So as I was driving, I was leaving Clarksville and I entered Kentucky, and I looked at the fields and I thought, oh my God, this is nothing like California. Now, California is beautiful, and it is my home for now. But there is a beauty wherever you locate and ground your being. And because I step foot and expect intuition to talk to me, in me, and through me, I was overcome with joy at seeing the rolling hills. I can't explain it. Now, would it affect anybody else? No, but you're not me. And your intuition may lead you in an entirely different direction. So I was so filled with joy that by the time I got into Illinois, by the time I saw my son, I was so filled with joy and enjoyed the whole trip. But I knew that something was stirring in me. I didn't see it, didn't feel it, but everywhere I went, kayaking on Grassy Lake, going past Crab Orchard Lake. The scenery is so much different. The lushness of the forests, the kindness of the people, that I was just transported back in time. And I would have like these mini dreams about my dad. My dad saying to me, Deborah, you're brilliant. Be brilliant, but stay with science and math, he said. So going back there, I went to where I lost myself to find myself. Well, what did I lose? I so loved my parents, and they were so incredible. And they so believed in me that I just complied. You know, they were a Cancer and a Pisces, the perfect match. They had 55 years they were married. They were happy, they were loving, they were kind, but they were practical. And they gave birth to a Gemini who wasn't practical. So my father, he didn't try to anchor me down, but I remember telling him, Dad, I want to go into the arts. And he said, no. He said, do you know what he told me? He said, no, you have to prepare for a divorce. As a woman, he had 3 daughters. He said, as a woman, you need to stand up and be wise enough to know that you could support yourself if something were to happen in your life. Stay with science and math. So I complied. And then even when I stopped complying and got a fashion design certificate in Northern California, when I got saved, I gave it all up. I sold my surgery. So there was a repeating pattern that every time I got close to being me, something pulled me back into that statement that said, no, you have to ground more. You have to ground more, because then people will understand you. If you always talk about things that they understand, but what if you don't? What if it's not necessary for you right now to understand me? What if I ask you to listen with your heart and not your head? So that happened the whole trip. And I would laugh and I would fall in love with my parents and the life that I had growing up in Chicago in the time I had. And I loved it all. And I knew that something that I wasn't seeing at that time was going to come from it. Why? Because I committed to me on a path that maybe nobody would understand, but I did. And I followed the path. And I stayed off of Facebook. I didn't do much. And I felt disconnected, and even that was okay. So what happened is that the trip ended, and thank God, because I flew out 2 days before all that storm came in, and my heart is going out to the people in North Carolina. I lived there for 2 years, in Tennessee, in Florida. It's not easy when those hurricanes come in. So I was sitting in the Nashville airport, got on the flight, and I landed. And something happened. When I landed in California, in San Jose, immediately I was walking to the car, and I sensed this insane energy that was so different from the Midwest. And I knew that that was the byproduct of something, because I knew that I was to see it. I didn't make much out of it, but I kept thinking it was my imagination. And I went, man, this is bizarre. And then I had the thought, what if home isn't really home? What if home is not this place in time? What if there's a higher consciousness that we're in, and we are only meant to experience this in a passing way and not be bound by the simulation, but to be the divine spark who we are here, to be brilliant, to be wise, to be full of love, and to just accept what comes our way, go into getting healing from the trauma, because this, my friend, is very, very dense energy. So I hope you're following me. So I realized that when I got what I considered home, which is the Bay Area, it's really not home. And then I thought, well, what is this about? And I thought, well, where is my home? Well, within me. And then I'll do another video on that, because this is not your home, folks. This is not where you're grounded. So even though I landed in California, I felt peace. But I was still frustrated, because I thought I was going to have this aha moment from being in Southern Illinois that was going to change my life before I left, but I didn't. And I had to rest in the fact that it was in me, and the essence of what I was to learn would rise up, but it didn't do it as I thought it would. So I came home, and the next day I thought, wow, I still don't have any direction. I thought this was going to change my life, but I knew something was stirring, and it was like God, the divine mind was saying, Deborah, be still, commit. And I would ask all these questions, and I was told just to be still. And when I was still, I started writing that I am free and I am me. And I thought, am I? Do you ever talk to yourself? I talk to myself all the time. And in the stillness of my heart, I listen. So I felt so full after that intuitive journey, but I was not going to make an assumption that I knew what it was going to reveal. Never, never, never make an assumption about where your intuition leads you, because inherent in the intuition is the wisdom, it is the knowledge that will unfold. But do not let ego, rejection, fear try to navigate in an understanding. And that is what I learned when I came home. I felt full. I knew I was supposed to go. I knew I was to commit to being me, but my mind was still focused on, but what did it do? So when I sat down to journal, I wrote down commit to who? And I said to myself, to you. And then suddenly thoughts began to pour in. And I realized that I am not going to buy into the algorithm of the matrix. And my whole message is going to change based upon my curiosity and my passion that I am a divine spark living on this planet with a distinct call to show people their brilliance and to not follow the set path. You don't have to follow what everybody else is doing. Do not be afraid of yourself. I was for many years. I hunkered down in religion. I became everything everybody wanted to be. And that is, these cracks in my foundation all began to fill in because I simply, over the past several years, followed my intuition. And I committed to being me. And only me can tell me who I am. And it doesn't come with trying to defend myself, prove myself, displace myself, denigrate myself, accept what others say about me. It is not based on anger. It is not based on anxiety. It is not based on shame. Those all get healed. But you wake up every morning and suddenly you're filled with no longer searching anymore. You're accepting the essence of who you are. So where are you today? Are you trying still to be who people call you to be? I'll expand on this in the coming days, and yes, I'll still integrate science and spirituality, but I want to leave you with this thought. I don't want to follow a set pattern. Sometimes when I do these Facebook Lives, I always feel, gotta have my notes, gotta follow the same. No, I'm not. Listen with your heart. Take what you need to take, if it's one thing I say, and then run with it. And let it expand your journey. So, this is also what I saw for myself when I was on this trip. Like I said at the beginning, my intuition allows me to see images and I hear one-liners. And I've known over time that those one-liners, if I open the door to them, expand into a wealth of knowledge that's going to reveal something about me in some way. So I kept hearing when I was there too and on the way home, don't put the cart before the horse, Deborah. So what does that mean? Okay, so if you have a cart and it's filled with things, back in the old days, you couldn't move the cart until you put the horse close to the cart. But if you're doing things out of order, and this is what I see people doing, they're pouring into the cart all their deconstruction, but they're still not moving the cart. And some of you are called to move the cart. Some of you are bridges that are going to help people cross over, but that is not everyone. I don't want to hear anymore about Christianity. That's my life. I will get verses that apply to my life as God brings them to me. I'm not going that way. I'm expanding my awareness to see everything. I'm not going to define myself by one thing. So when I heard that, don't put the cart before the horse, it was obvious to me that so many are still putting in and not actually moving that cart. Many are still seeking a savior, whether that's the savior of deconstruction, whether that's the savior of government, the savior of religion. You don't need a savior, folks. Get the horse, attach it to the cart, and begin to move. Unload what you don't need, and along the way, you're going to see things to add. Get rid of what you don't need, add other things. So putting it all in the cart without taking action to lead out in your passion, you're stuck. You're no different than still someone stuck in the same religious duality that many of us were raised in. It's time to move. It's time to get going. So then I listened. See, all these things I'm saying, they all integrated into my life. So I'm just tossing them all out to you, how they all led to this trip, to this healing. And then I heard Julie Poole, she's a tarot reader, and she says, be the source of everything that you want to manifest. Now, I had to think about that. I cannot manifest anything that is not in me. And manifestation, I'm not talking about the law of attraction. I'm talking about manifesting who you are into this space in this time. You are the source. Nothing comes externally without you first realizing that it is within you. If you're abundance, and you keep saying your abundance, it may come with someone giving you a check or winning the lottery for $1 million, but it may not. So first you have to know you're abundant before you attract that unto yourself. This is not BS. This is true. You are the source from which you manifest from. And I realized I wasn't flowing like that. I was still flowing in everybody else leading the way, and I was taking my cues from everybody else, and that's gone. So go within you before you create. You can't create something that doesn't come from your inner essence. You are the divine manifestation in your humanity of your divinity. You cannot manifest that which is not you. And if you do, it will never satisfy you. It will never bring you joy. It will never. And when you have the courage to manifest who you are, get ready, because people are going to constantly berate you, tell you. Do you know how many times I have people tell me, oh, I'm praying for you, dear, that you see the true light, that you there's still this pressure to be something that you're not. So I checked within my heart. So I came full circle for this period of time. Now there'll be something else. We never stop growing. We never stop expanding. We're always learning. I think I was listening to a podcast the other day where Plato says, when you know nothing, then that's where you're supposed to be. You will never know everything. You will never hunker down, and you should never hunker down in one perception or one truth, because things are always expanding. So I came full circle. And if you didn't hear the beginning of this, you'll realize I'm talking about my journey and the intuitive realities that you have to follow. So I came full circle. So I am declaring that I have more joy than I've ever had in my life. Why? Because I'm committing to me. It is that simple. But because it's that simple, simplicity comes with responsibility to look hard and careful at stuff. And I find that a lot of people simply don't want to do that. They're fearful of being rejected. They don't really know who they are. They don't even like themselves. So I will continue to integrate in the future science and spirituality, talking about the Akashic records, talking about, yes, we do live, I believe we live in a simulation. I'll explain that in greater detail. It's not negative. There is a simulation overlay. There's something overlaying this point in time with a constructed reality that is trying to keep you from realizing your divine humanity. Greg Braden says, why are you going to turn your life over to AI when you don't even know the abilities that are in you in your divine humanity? I believe in that 100%. So one other thing is that I'm curious and I'm creative. And I'll wrap it up by also saying that I denigrated that in myself. I wanted to be understood. I wanted to do a Facebook Live to show my brilliance, to have people understand. And I simply just take one thing I'm saying, okay, and then run with it. So all these things I saw as fragments. And I was unwilling to change because I wanted to be understood. And that came. Most of us have a fear of being who we are. And I don't have the words, so let me say it again. Most of us have this innate fear of being who we are. So it's like we keep it trapped and we're constantly arguing. We're using words to defend ourselves, but it's not healing us. Because when you finally learn who you are, you realize that you are very unique, and it stops being cliche and it becomes reality. So I see Dr. Kay Fairchild. Now, Dr. Kay is a teacher. She's an incredible teacher. You listen and then you take that into your life. And there's other incredible people following in their path. Now, who am I? I'm quirky. I might do a reel for 1.5 minutes, just telling you one thought. I will then, I will do a message on songs that have ministered to me, songs that have expanded my consciousness. I will then, and you will get to the point where you don't need to be understood anymore. So I hope this makes sense. It's such a turning point for me. Now, what does the future hold? I'm not really sure. Am I staying in California? I don't know. Am I moving back to the Midwest? I don't know. I'm going to take it one day at a time, and I'm going to live in the now. And I'm going to keep focusing on the essence of my heart, which believes with everything in me. Folks, you are brilliant. You are brilliant, and the Matrix has shot you down to constantly live in fear and disconnection. It's time to commit to yourself, but committing to yourself doesn't mean trying to prove yourself. Sometimes you have to be quiet. I got an email a while back where someone told me, oh my God, these messages you're preaching are almost incomprehensible to my brain. Why have you left your belief system? I'm going to pray that you go back into the true light. Now, what was my response? Love. I said, you don't have to pray for me. I'm fine. And if you ever want to talk about things, let's talk about them. But no, I'm moving on. So when you commit to being you, it is the most wonderful thing. And I know that I've said it before, and I have changed so much over these past few years. I've started one thing, I've left it. Give yourself the grace to start and stop, start and stop. You don't have to be on a steady path. You're not going to be on a steady path to find yourself. You may start something and it's not for you, and then you might leave it and you think, oh my God, what are people going to think about me? This is everything I experienced. So I'm going to leave you with that. And I hope with everything in my being that you have an incredible day. Take time to meditate. Don't follow a plan or a procedure. Take a journal. Go sit in nature and listen. Just listen to what your heart is telling you. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I love all of you, and I truly mean that with my heart. Whether you know it or not, some of you have helped me tremendously on my journey by just watching you stay in your path, because you knew that was the path for you while I was going every which way. So I love you. I hope you have an incredible day and weekend.